The bell above the clinic door jingled softly as doctor. Marcus Hayes unlocked it for the first time. The sign still read Greenridge Animal Care, but inside, everything smelled faintly of fresh paint and lemon polish. He had scrubbed the old floors himself, hung framed photos of pets rescued during his years of study, and placed a jar of treats on the counter with a handwritten label, "For brave patients." Marcus was 32, tall, soft-spoken, and carried the quiet steadiness of someone who had spent his life listening to creatures that couldn't speak back. He had grown up on the edge of a city, the kid who patched up pigeons with broken wings and stray dogs, limping on three legs. Veterinary school had been hard, lonely at times, but he had endured, driven by a simple truth: animals deserved someone who would not give up on them. Greenridge was small-town America at its most picturesque. Red brick storefronts, tidy lawns, a church steeple visible from nearly every corner. But Marcus felt the eyes on him the moment he moved in. Curious, cautious, measuring. Some nodded politely when he passed, others turned away. His first patient was a nervous calico named Daisy. Her owner, Mrs. Turner, a widow with kind eyes, wrung her hands as Marcus examined the cat's paw. Daisy hissed and squirmed, but Marcus murmured low and steady, stroking her fur until she settled. He cleaned the cut, wrapped it carefully, and handed Daisy back. Mrs. Turner's shoulders dropped in relief. "You've got a gift, doctor." "She never lets anyone touch her like that." Marcus smiled. "Animals can tell when you mean them no harm." Word spread slowly, as word does in small towns. A golden retriever with a fever, a horse with a stone bruise, a child's rabbit who refused to eat. Each case stitched his name into Greenridge a little tighter. Families left with lighter hearts, pets left with wagging tails or steady purrs. But not everyone was pleased. At the farmer's market one Saturday, Marcus overheard a sharp voice behind him. "I don't like it. We don't know where he trained. We don't know what kind of methods he uses." The voice belonged to Karen Whitfield. Everyone in Greenridge knew her. Crisp suits, perfect hair, a member of the town council, a woman who made opinions sound like verdicts. She stood with a small circle of neighbors, arms folded, her eyes fixed on Marcus, as though he were a problem to be solved. "He's too new, too untested," she continued. "This is about standards, about keeping our pets safe." Marcus pretended not to hear, but the words lodged deep. He had heard them before, in other forms, in other towns, always dressed up as concern. Back at the clinic, he checked on Daisy's bandage and listened to the hum of the building around him. For the animals, none of this mattered. They didn't care about resumes or rumors. They only cared about the hands that healed, the voice that soothed, the promise that they were safe. Marcus sat at his desk, wrote, "Be worthy of their trust," on a sticky note, and placed it by the phone. The note was for himself, but also for anyone who came through the door. He didn't know it yet, but soon the whole town would be asked to decide whether they believed those words too. The trouble began quietly, the way storms do, with a shift in the air, a tension you can't quite name. 2 weeks after Marcus performed an emergency surgery on a golden retriever named Scout, saving the dog from a twisted stomach, he noticed the whispers. At first, it was subtle, conversations that hushed when he entered the grocery store, sidelong glances at the post office. A mother who had once chatted warmly while her child petted Marcus's Labrador now tugged her son away without explanation. Scout's owner had been ecstatic, crying with relief when Marcus carried the groggy retriever out of surgery. But within days, a different story began to circulate: that the dog had barely survived, that Marcus had been lucky, that perhaps he was in over his head. Karen Whitfield gathered these whispers like dry sticks for kindling. She was methodical. She called neighbors, pressed her concerns at PTA meetings, and finally drafted a formal complaint addressed to the Greenridge Town Council. Her language was polished, rehearsed. "Doctor, Hayes is inexperienced. His methods are untested. The safety of our beloved pets must come first." There was no mention of race, not in ink. But in the spaces between her sentences, The message was as sharp as broken glass. Marcus had heard that tone before. The complaint spread quickly. It appeared in the weekly newsletter, in Facebook posts, in murmured conversations at church and over fences. Soon people were repeating Karen's words as though they were facts. "He's careless," I heard. "Not the right fit for a town like ours. Maybe it's safer to go to the clinic in the next county." Marcus sat at his desk one evening, the clinic dark except for the lamp by his elbow, reading the copy of the complaint Mrs. Davis, the council secretary, had reluctantly handed him. His jaw tightened with every line. It wasn't just an attack on his work. It was an attempt to erase him before he had even been given a chance to stand. The phone rang. It was Mrs. Turner, Daisy the Calico's owner. "Dr. Hayes," she said firmly, "I don't believe a word of what they're saying. My Daisy hasn't limped a day since you treated her. You saved her. If they think they can take you away from this town, they'll have to go through me." Marcus closed his eyes, gripping the receiver. Her words steadied him, but the knot in his chest remained. Because he knew Karen's complaint wasn't just about him, it was about whether Greenridge would accept someone like him in the heart of their community. And soon he realized this fight would not stay in the shadows. It would be dragged into the open, where the whole town would have to choose. The waiting room had once been lively, alive with the soft chaos of pets and their people. Puppies had barked at one another, tails wagging like metronomes. Cats had glared from carriers, indignant and regal. Children had giggled as they snuck biscuits from the treat jar on the counter. But now, a hush had settled over the clinic. Marcus noticed it first in the empty chairs. On a Monday morning, where once he might have seen 5 or 6 patients lined up before the doors opened, only one woman sat waiting, clutching a dachshund to her chest. The quiet echoed strangely, broken only by the hum of the overhead lights. By Wednesday, the silence had thickened. Appointments were canceled last minute. Phone calls slowed. Even the delivery driver who usually lingered to scratch Marcus's Labrador, Shadow, now dropped packages quickly and left without small talk. Marcus kept moving through his days, but the absence pressed against him like a weight. Each time the bell above the door rang, he straightened instinctively, only to see another client drop off paperwork rather than a pet. Their excuses sounded thin. "We're trying a specialist out of town. My cousin recommended another clinic." The unspoken words lingered in the air. "We don't trust you. We don't want to be seen here." Still, signs of loyalty flickered through the gloom. One afternoon, Marcus returned from the kennels to find a basket of cookies on the counter, wrapped in clear plastic and tied with a ribbon. The note read, "For Dr. Hayes. Thank you for saving Scout." It was signed by the Johnson family, whose golden retriever had been the center of Karen's rumors. Later that week, an envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a child's drawing of a gray cat with bright green eyes. Above it, in crooked letters, "Dr. Hayes is Daisy's hero." Mrs. Turner had included a short note. "Don't let them scare you off." The gestures warmed him, but they didn't erase the silence that grew each day in his clinic. Marcus sat at his desk in the evenings, staring at the empty appointment book. He stroked Shadow's head absently as the Labrador leaned against his leg, warm and steady. "You don't care, do you, boy?" Marcus whispered. Shadow licked his hand in answer, as if to say, "You matter to me." Marcus leaned back, rubbing his eyes. He had known starting over in a small town would be hard, but he hadn't expected the battle to come so swiftly, nor the loneliness to feel this sharp. The silence in the waiting room wasn't just absence. It was a message. And if he didn't fight it soon, that silence would swallow everything he had built. The silence in the waiting room didn't last forever. Like cracks in ice, small voices began to break through. It started with Emily Ward, a teacher Marcus had met during Daisy the Calico's treatment. She arrived one afternoon with her daughter and a floppy-eared beagle named Max. After the checkup, Emily lingered at the counter. "I know what's being said," she told Marcus, her voice low but steady, "but people need reminding of the truth. You've helped more animals in 2 months than some vets manage in years." She placed a stack of papers on the counter. Marcus blinked. They were children's letters, each one decorated with paw prints and colorful drawings. Thank you for helping Max. Dr. Hayes makes pets feel better. One was written in pink marker. Don't take Dr. Hayes away. He's nice to cats. Marcus's throat tightened. Thank you, he murmured. Word spread not from Karen's council meetings, but from kitchens, barns, and playgrounds. Farmers began to speak in his defense. One posted a photo of his horse on Facebook with the caption, "This mare wouldn't be walking today without Dr. Hayes." The post gathered dozens of likes and comments, neighbors chiming in with their own stories. Parents remembered how Marcus had crouched down to reassure their children when a dog needed stitches or a kitten needed shots. He doesn't just treat the animals, one father told a friend at the diner. He treats the whole family. Soon, photos began appearing online. Pets posing with Marcus, tails wagging, purrs audible in short video clips. Hashtags spread. Hashtag our vet and hashtag trust Dr. Hayes. And the loyalty wasn't confined to screens. One Saturday morning, Marcus arrived to find a line outside the clinic. Not of patients, but of owners holding signs. We stand with Dr. Hayes, keep our vet. Some were homemade, letters uneven, others painted with careful precision. Children held their pets proudly as if to say, "These lives prove his worth." Karen passed by in her immaculate SUV that day. She slowed just enough for her window to roll down, surveying the crowd with a tight-lipped smile that didn't reach her eyes. Marcus felt her stare, cold and sharp, before the window slid shut and the car rolled on. But for the first time in weeks, Marcus didn't feel alone. The voices that had whispered against him were being drowned out by others. Louder, warmer, truer. That night, as he locked up the clinic, he paused to look at the sticky notes still on his desk. Be worthy of their trust. The words felt heavier now, but also brighter, because he wasn't carrying them alone anymore. The town council chamber in Greenridge was rarely crowded. Most nights, the polished wooden benches sat nearly empty, while officials debated zoning permits or argued about pothole repairs. But on the evening of Dr. Marcus Hayes's hearing, every seat was filled. The air buzzed with tension, with voices that tried to whisper but couldn't hide their urgency. At the front sat the council members in a row, papers stacked neatly before them. The mayor, a stout man with tired eyes, tapped his gavel to call the room to order. This meeting concerns the formal complaint filed against Dr. Hayes, veterinarian of Greenridge Animal Care. His voice carried through the chamber, though even he looked uneasy. Karen Whitfield rose immediately. Dressed in her signature navy suit, she carried a folder thick with documents and photographs. Her heels clicked across the wooden floor as she approached the podium. My fellow citizens, she began, her tone smooth and confident. We all value the safety and well-being of our pets. They are family. But with family comes responsibility. Dr. Hayes has shown questionable judgment, and while I do not question his intentions, I do question his fitness to serve this community. She held up a paper dramatically. In just 3 months, there have been multiple emergency procedures, too many for comfort, mistakes narrowly avoided, risks taken without full transparency. She laid the papers down, letting them slap against the wood. I ask that this council take action before tragedy strikes. Greenridge deserves better standards. She stepped back, eyes sweeping the room as though daring anyone to oppose her. Marcus sat quietly, hands folded in his lap. His stomach churned, but his expression was calm. He had heard this performance before, in different places, in different guises. Polished words hiding the same old message. When the mayor gestured, Marcus stood. He didn't carry a folder, didn't bring statistics or dramatic props. He walked slowly to the podium, every step echoing in the hush. I didn't come to Greenridge to make speeches, he said simply. His voice was steady, low but clear. I came here to heal animals, to sit on cold floors with scared dogs, to listen to the heartbeat of a rabbit when its child owner was crying, to stand in a barn at midnight and keep a mare alive. That's my work, he paused, letting his words settle. I'm not here for politics. I'm here because animals can't speak for themselves, but they deserve someone to fight for them anyway." For a moment, silence reigned. Then, from the back, a voice rang out, shaky but strong. "He saved my scout!" It was Mrs. Johnson, tears brimming in her eyes. She stood clutching a photo of her golden retriever. "Karen can say what she likes, but my dog is alive because of Doctor." Hayes' others rose in turn. A farmer spoke of his mare. A child stepped forward, holding a guinea pig in a shoebox. "He listens to her heartbeat like it matters," the girl said softly. The chamber filled with stories, real voices, raw emotion. Owners clutched leashes, lifted cats in carriers, even held up phones with photos of pets, grinning beside Marcus. The tide was turning. Karen's folder of complaints sat untouched on the podium, its sharp edges dulled by the chorus rising against it. And Marcus stood quietly, not needing to say more. Because the truth was no longer his alone to carry. It belonged to the town now. The chamber was buzzing now, a current of voices that refused to be hushed. The council members shifted in their seats, exchanging uneasy glances as the line of testimonies continued. A farmer with dirt still clinging to his boots spoke with his cap pressed against his chest. "My mare would have died foaling last spring if not for Doctor." Hayes. He came out in the rain at 2 in the morning, didn't ask about pay, didn't stop till she was standing again. His voice cracked. "That's a man who belongs here." A teenage boy shuffled forward, clutching a trembling rescue mutt. "When no one else could get near him, Doctor." Hayes sat on the floor for an hour, just waiting, just talking low, until Buddy trusted him. No one else even tried. The dog barked once, as if to add his own testimony. Even the council secretary, Mrs. Davis, who rarely spoke in meetings, cleared her throat and said, "My own cat owes her life to him." I think that speaks louder than any paperwork. By now, Karen's tight smile had hardened into something brittle. She glanced down at her folder, fingers gripping the edges, but she didn't rise again. Her eyes darted from the council to the crowd, as though searching for support that wasn't there. Finally, the mayor tapped his gavel. The room fell silent. "We have heard the complaint. We have heard the response, and we have heard the community." He shuffled his notes, but his voice grew steadier with each word. "The purpose of this council is to ensure Greenridge is safe, fair, and thriving. From what we've seen tonight, Doctor, Hayes has proven himself not only competent, but indispensable." A pause. He raised his eyes. "The complaint is dismissed. Dr. Hayes will remain the town veterinarian." For half a heartbeat, there was silence, the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Then the chamber erupted. Applause thundered, cheers bounced off the wooden walls, and dogs barked as if they too understood the verdict. Children laughed, clutching their pets tighter. Even the elderly woman in the red shawl, who rarely left her porch, was on her feet, clapping with surprising force. Marcus stood frozen for a moment, the words sinking in. His throat tightened, his eyes stung, but he bowed his head in gratitude. He hadn't needed the cheer. The simple truth of belonging was enough. Across the room, Karen sat stiffly, her arms crossed. She didn't applaud, but she didn't speak again either. For the first time, her power seemed smaller than the love of a town's pets and the people who cared for them. As the gavel banged one last time, Marcus realized this wasn't just a verdict about his job. It was a verdict about who the town wanted to be. And in that moment, Greenridge had chosen. The week after the hearing, Greenridge Animal Care felt alive again. The waiting room returned to its old rhythm. Tails thumping against chair legs, cats yowling indignantly from their carriers, children giggling as they fed Shadow, Marcus's Labrador, sneaky bits of biscuit from the treat jar. Appointments filled faster than Marcus could keep up. Farmers brought in calves with fevers, families carried puppies too small to climb the steps, and elderly neighbors came just to say thank you, even if their pets were perfectly healthy. A bouquet of flowers sat on the counter, sent anonymously, with a note that read, "We're glad you stayed." One afternoon, as Marcus knelt to check a terrier's paw, The bell above the door chimed. He glanced up and froze. Karen Whitfield stood in the doorway. Her crisp navy suit was gone. Instead, she wore a plain sweater, her hair less immaculate than usual. At her side tugged a boy, no older than 12, holding a leash attached to a beagle whose belly was rounder than it should have been. Karen cleared her throat, her voice sharper than necessary. "The dog swallowed a toy," she said. "He needs help." For a moment, the room was utterly still. Everyone remembered the hearing, the accusations, the tension. Marcus rose slowly, dusted his hands, and nodded. "Bring him here," he said simply. Karen hesitated, then stepped forward. Her son's eyes darted nervously, but the beagle wagged its tail, trusting without question. Marcus examined the dog with the same calm care he gave every patient. The toy was lodged but removable, and within an hour, the beagle was sitting happily, licking Marcus's hand. The boy laughed with relief. "See, Mom? I told you he'd be okay." Karen pressed her lips together, but her shoulders sagged. She murmured a stiff, "Thank you," and turned to leave. Marcus didn't stop her. He didn't need to. The beagle's wagging tail said enough. As the door jingled shut, the room exhaled. A farmer clapped Marcus on the back. A little girl whispered, "You're the best vet, Doctor." Hayes' shadow thumped his tail proudly. That evening, Marcus stood outside the clinic, the sun painting the horizon gold. He looked up at the wooden sign above the door. Greenridge Animal Care. It no longer felt borrowed. It felt earned. The fight had been bitter, the words cruel, but what remained was stronger. The bond between people, their animals, and the one who cared for them. Marcus smiled, locking up for the night. Tomorrow would bring more patients, more noise, more work, but that was all he wanted. Because in the end, the pets had chosen, and their owners had followed. And for Dr. Hayes, that was victory enough.